My name is Andy Westhoven, Regional Agronomist with Agrigold Hybrids, and today I'm looking at a potential replant field. Now the first thing you want to do in a field is assess the current population stand in several different areas within the field. The way you'd want to do that is to take a measuring tape and stretch it out to 17 feet 5 inches. That is in a 30-inch row scenario, and count the plants on both sides of the measuring tape from beginning to end. And at this particular spot, I counted 26 plants on one side and 23 plants on the other side. And there were actually considerable gaps and questionable plants that I did not count. So you can see the average of those two sides would be 24,500 plants. That was probably very representative of this field. In a specific situation here within this row, there are several missing plants. So I went ahead and dug up some plants to observe what the cause might be. First of all, I noticed these plants here. The plant on the left is a healthy plant, and all the other ones are ones that were showing some troubling issues with emergence. Basically what you can observe on some of these plants is the mesocotyl, which would be the area, the white part right above the seed, is not straight. Every single one of them is curved or having trouble with emergence. You can see this plant here actually grew laterally for a while because it just had some sort of resistance that allowed it not to grow vertically, and then eventually it found an area and then grew vertically. You can see actually this plant right next to the healthy one, this plant right here, this seed, actually just grew in circles. Just had a lot of resistance and was not able to penetrate and grow vertically into the soil and up through the soil profile. All these plants were roughly about an inch deep. Recommend usually 1.5 inches to 2 inches deep. Regardless of most soil conditions, you at least want to be down into some soil moisture. This particular field was planted at 32,000 plants per acre, and so we can see that several plants are not emerging very well. So after you've assessed maybe why some of these plants are not coming up, and as long as there's not huge gaps within an area of the field, if you have an average population, the next thing you want to do is use a resource that Purdue has published. When you look at this chart, the first thing you want to do is determine when you first planted this field. This field was actually planted on May 9th, which we can see is on this chart. And right now, you want to go under plants per acre at harvest. So we'll assume that all these plants will go to harvest. And right now we are at 22,500 roughly for this entire field. So if you follow May 9th across to 22,500, we are expecting roughly 93% of our expected yield. So we've lost 7% of our expected yield due to a below average planting population. What we need to do is jump down to our planting date that we would come back in here. So right now our replant date would be today, May 21st. You can see really we're between May 19th and May 24th. So we're pretty much right there in the middle. We would come back in and reseed this area at 32,500 plants per acre. So you can see that roughly, if we were at May 21st, we're right between 91 and 86% of our expected yield. So probably right around 88% of our expected yield. That is actually lower than our 93% that we already currently have. So according to this chart, we would leave this field alone. There's been enough research to show that leaving this field at 22,500 plants per acre is better than coming in today and replanting this field. We also need to consider the hybrid and the genetics that are planted within this field. There could be multiple hybrids. Here it is one hybrid and is actually a flexible ear hybrid. So that will compensate in some of these areas where there are missing plants. So that is also a factor that we need to consider. And when we're looking at a replant situation, really in my mind there are only two scenarios that you can do. You can leave the stand or you can tear it up and start over. Most growers will also consider spotting in a few thousand plants per acre. Say right now, again, we're at 22,000. They may want to come in and drop in 10 or 14,000 plants per acre. I just feel that there's so much damage that can be done to the current stand, as well as throwing off a lot of the maturity differences, and also you'll have a lot of problems at harvest. So primarily it's better to either stick with leaving the stand or tearing it up and starting completely over. Another avenue to investigate is also the fertility level of this field. I will take a few soil samples from this field and look at specifically the magnesium level. USDA says right around 18% magnesium level within a field is kind of a breaking point. On a heavier soil type like we are on today, above 18% magnesium levels within this field would mean that they are too high. The magnesium levels are too high for this field. Magnesium can actually help crust a soil over. It tightens the soil and allows for poor drainage of water. So that is one avenue that we also need to investigate to determine if we also have some fertility levels that could be preventing this field from having a more perfect stand. And lastly, when it comes to replant, in almost every situation, it's a grower comfort level. If the grower is not going to be comfortable with a below standard population like 22,000, then ideally it would be best to allow that grower to come in here and start over. If the grower is fine and content with 22,000 and he can live with that for the rest of the year, then leave the stand. So really it comes down to also not just the decision making and the yield determination processes, but also the grower's comfort level with this particular field.